Hello, and welcome to the 741 channel. Thank you for stopping by. Today, we're celebrating the YouTubers Hamfest with SDRplay on board. And first off, I want to mention that this is not a live stream like a lot of the other YouTuber Hamfest sessions. Unfortunately, I was not able to participate live this year, so this will be a pre-recorded premiere. But feel free to drop your comments in the chat if you have any questions or comments. Let us know, and somebody will try to answer them. So having said all that, today we've got John Hudson with us from SDRplay to talk a little bit about their company, their products, what they do, and what they offer within the ham radio and shortwave listening space. Go ahead, John.
Well, thanks, Rob. I just can't believe it's a year since we were doing this, and it's been quite a year and a real challenge for everyone. But I'd like to say a big hello to all the other YouTuber creators and the fantastic audience there, and for their support for our products. So here's a real update with lots of new information about what's happening with SDRplay. And just a few words for the newcomers to SDR that may be out there. You may be still hesitating and wanting to know, what is all this stuff? Well, first of all, our company is a British company. We're based in the UK. It's a very small team. We subcontract our manufacturing in the UK, but we do have a couple of employees over there in America. We have Mike, KD2, KOG in Florida, and Steve, who you'll hear from in a minute, is KI5 ENW in Dallas. So what is an SDR? So it's a radio communication system where the components that were traditionally implemented in hardware, so things like mixers, filters, amplifiers, and so on, are all done in software on a host computer of some sort. Our SDRplay products are receive only, and the big thing that they do and differentiate them from dongles that you may have heard of is that we have a lot of extra added hardware filtering to ensure that you get a minimum number of artifacts and false signals across a huge chunk of spectrum from 1 kilohertz up to 2 gigahertz. And this architectural diagram here just shows down the middle here a whole bunch of passband filters, and at the front end there's additional notch filters to notch out those big interfering type signals that come from broadcast towers, FM, AM, and in Europe and some countries DAB as well. We have things like a bias T circuit to power remote antennas, and you'll see over on the right hand side the tuner, which selects the 10 megahertz portion of the spectrum that's going to be converted into a digital stream through the USB cable, bottom right there, off to your host computer. And the key difference versus a traditional rig is what you can do with your eyes here. You visualize the spectrum instead of just tuning through it. So you have this spectrum display at the heart and the center of the software. And you also have the ability to do this as a standalone receiver or as what they call a pan adapter or panoramic adapter for your traditional rig, whereby you can actually sync the two together. And as you spin the dial on your traditional rig, you can have this massive display on a big HDMI monitor, which brings everything alive. So we have 3 products, Rob, as you know, the RSP1A, the DX, and the Duo, and the whole thing is stitched together by this ever-evolving SDR Uno Windows software. So the 1A is the kind of entry-level product, and it's great for attracting retirees who perhaps played with radio years ago. It's a really great sort of place to start rediscovering the spectrum. And as with all our RSPs, they cover all the way from 1 kilohertz to 2 gigahertz, and you get this kind of up to 10 megahertz visibility as you tune across the spectrum. All the RSPs, as well as being supported by the SDR Uno software that we'll talk a bit more about in a moment, there's a lot of third-party activity out there, like a very, very good spectrum analyzer. There's GNU radio source blocks for the people playing with Raspberry Pis and innovating in new radio architectures. We even have a Raspberry Pi SD card image that you can download So that's the RSP-1A, and that's just a picture of the GNU radio architecture. You can do accurate power measurements. So it's actually a lab tool as well as a great hobby receiver. And that's what the spectrum analyzer looks like. So going up is the DX. We've got, this comes in a very rugged steel case. And the key big difference is it has multiple antenna ports. So you can, you don't have to keep changing antennas, because obviously the same antennas for down at LF are not the same ones you'd want to be using up at, say, UHF. So we've also improved on some of the performance that older members there may remember with the RSP2 in the past. And we've added a few hooks to improve performance below 2 megahertz. And then the top of the range is our RSP Duo, which allows you to either look at a 10 meg slot or simultaneously 2 different 2 megahertz chunks of spectrum. So this has a lot of extra capability in the sense that you could monitor widely spaced bands simultaneously, you know, an HF band and 2 meters. You can do diversity demodulation if you have antennas which are either far apart or separated by frequency and polarization. And the sort of stuff that's available today with our SDR Uno software is signal enhancement and noise cancelling. Either you adding wanted signals together or subtracting unwanted signals from each other. And actually, an interesting use case which we perhaps didn't predict, but particularly for HF, where you really have to do things in real time. You've got fast or even slow fading conditions. You plug in one antenna. Oh, that looks pretty good. I'm getting that signal at this kind of S9 level. You swap it over, and then it's down to S7. You think, oh, that's that antenna's not so good. But actually, the conditions have changed. Well, the great thing with the Duo is that you can compare the antennas in real time. And this is a screenshot of the 2 tuners. The top half is one tuner, the bottom half is another. They're both tuned to the same frequency, you'll notice. And actually, there's a video on how to set this up in the documentation and video section of the website. But comparing antennas in real time is really cool. Monitoring widely spaced bands. That's an example there. You could mix and match applications. So you could actually be running kind of an ADSB dump 1090 software up at 1 gig, looking at aircraft transponder information at the same time as listening to the VHF ATC. These are the controls you get in the SDR Uno software for the diversity tuning. Let's just finish up on this part of the update on the comparison chart. This is again on the website, which shows the different features of the different RSPs that we provide. That's a kind of whistle stop tour, Rob. Quite a quick one, but I'd like to turn it over now, if I may, to my colleague Steve, KO5ENW.
Okay, yeah, let's give it over to Steve and let him tell us a little bit about what's coming up for the future.
Thank you, John and Rob. Hello, everybody, wherever you may be. I'm delighted to be able to participate in the YouTubers Hamfest, and I'm going to take this opportunity to give you a sneak preview of a major new feature coming to our SDR Uno SDR software. But first, I'd like to go through a quick review of the existing features within SDR Uno for those of you that may not be intimately familiar with it. Over the last couple of years, many different features have been added to SDR Uno to make it more useful. Obviously, we've added support for all the RSPs as they've come into production. We have features like calibrated power measurement, which is unique to my knowledge within SDR software. We have the ability to create memory banks, as many as you like, for easy recall of particular frequencies of interest. The scanner was a big one for us. Developed primarily for things such as scanning the airband, it's turned out to be incredibly useful on other frequency ranges as well. We've had the ability to log power and signal to noise values, which is nice for some unattended recording. We added the ability to take the IQ output from the software, which is great for interfacing to other pieces of third-party software, for example, CW Skimmer. Workspaces and profiles have allowed you to customize how your layout for the software looks and what sort of frequencies and ranges are displayed. We've always had multiple VRXs up to 16, which means you could listen to one virtual receiver and use other virtual receivers to output to third-party decoder software, for example. And we've had a recording function for some time, which records the entire IQ spectrum that the receiver is recording. And then most recently, we added an exciting new capability in the form of plugins. And that's significant because for the first time, it allows third-party developers easy access to SDR Uno to add on additional capabilities. In fact, since it's relevant to what I'm going to cover later, I'd just like to give you a brief demonstration now of one of the plugins called the DX Cluster plugin. The DX Cluster plugin is one of several plugins that use annotation features on the main spectrum display. In the case of DX Cluster, what you do is you log into different cluster servers, and it will identify particular contacts that have been recently in use, and it will identify them with the small labels you see on the display. I'm sorry it's not super clear for you to see, but hopefully that will encourage you to get SDR Uno and try it out. Other annotation programs include FRAN for Frequency Annotator, which tends to call upon large databases of common broadcast stations and is very useful for the shortwave listeners, for example. It's also one of several different capabilities you can get using the plugin system. Other plugins can be used for decoding DAB broadcasts in Europe in particular, for using contour shuttle control wheels with the software. There's also a simple audio recorder. So many different capabilities are open. We hope that the plugin library will continue to expand over time. If you open up the recording panel in the existing software, the small window you see in the lower left labeled Recorder will open up. And it has basic transport controls in there, allowing you to play back previously recorded WAV files, or you can use the record button and make a recording of currently received signals. Now, this is not a simple audio recorder. It actually records the entire IQ data stream. So anything you see in the main spectrum window will be recorded, and during playback, you can tune through that spectrum as if you were listening in real time. Now, if you're not there and you want to record something later on, if you open the scheduler window on the right, you have the ability to put a start and end time and date. Unfortunately, you can only do that for one event. And the big feature we're about to demonstrate is the new scheduler function about to appear in SDR Uno. So let's take the new scheduler for a spin. The button that used to be labeled Recording Panel is now called Scheduler. When we click on it, you can see the new scheduler window opens, and you'll see I've already added numerous events. In addition, at the bottom, you see the transport controls that mimic what we had in the old recorder before, and they can still be used in much the same way. For example, if I want to record the visible spectrum we see there right now, I can click on the record button and a recording will start. We can just allow that to record for a few seconds, stop the recording, and then we can go and play it back. So if we go to the options button, select a WAV file as our input, it will open up a file requester and we can scroll down and find the file that we just recorded. So we can open up the file, click on play, and you see the spectrum is played back just as if we were looking at it live, and we can tune through the band just as we would normally. But enough of that, let's look at some of the new features. So we'll go back to the RSP as our source. You'll see I previously added a number of different events. Let's see how that's done. So start off by clicking Add Event. In the window that opens, you have numerous choices. You can specify the start and end times for an event, or indeed the duration, and you can select a particular date for that event to run. In the lower half of the window, we can specify a particular VFO frequency we want to use, and then the type of action we want to occur. We can either play, we can make an IQ recording, or we can initiate a scan. Then at the bottom of the window, we have the ability to select a profile. Now what a profile is a collection of radio parameters. It may include the state of the broadcast band filters, the gain function, the operating mode, and very commonly used with third-party software where you might want to specify that the VRX output goes to a virtual audio cable rather than the speakers on your system. So basically what you want to do is set up all the parameters for a particular configuration, and then you can save those as a profile which can then be instantly recalled later. So once you've selected the necessary mode and all the other parameters of interest, noise reduction is one of the things that can be specified, we can do a right click over in the memory panel in the lower half and we can store that profile. And we'll just call it profile 2 just for convenience. So now we can go back to the scheduler window and we can select the profile we need from the bottom drop down. And what this means is when an event fires off, it will restore all those radio settings to our desired values quickly and easily. So now we can click on the OK button and you'll see we have a new event added to the bottom of the list of events showing up in the scheduler. Very powerful. Now at the risk of sounding like one of those TV adverts, but wait, there's more. You'll notice in the lower right hand side there is a list of the plugins we have installed in our system. For example, the DX cluster plugin we demonstrated earlier. So when you're creating an event, in addition to causing the radio to start playing, you can also open up any of the plugins you have installed. A very powerful feature, although it will depend on some of the plugin authors adding the capability to auto-run when their plugins are opened. Not only can you set up multiple events in the scheduler, you can also create recurring events. So an event, rather than just running once, can also be set to run daily, or every other day for example, or weekly, or every couple of weeks for example, or indeed on a particular day of the month. That gives you enormous flexibility and saves you a lot of programming time down the road. Now before I go, let me show you one particular use case we think will be very popular. Many people like to try and identify broadcast stations by listening at the top of the hour. So if we set a start time, say 5 minutes before, and an end time 5 minutes after, and then the function we pick is IQ record, we can set the scheduler to go and record the entire spectrum over that time window at the top of the hour. We can then come back later and we can play back that recording, we can tune through the band and see how many of the stations there we can ID successfully. That's probably the most often requested capability, and we're delighted to finally bring that functionality to you. So that's a quick tour around the new scheduler function coming in SDR Uno. I've had a lot of fun playing with it and I look forward to playing with it some more, and I think you'll like to get your hands on it as well. So with that, thank you for your time, and I'll hand it back over to Jon.
Steve has really just touched on the key things coming in version 1.41, which the scheduling function and receiver profiles. We have a roadmap which, in fact, I know it sometimes seems like a long time between these steps, but a lot of work is already going on in parallel for 1.42. And the big thing about that will be remote operation with a new TCP server, cross-platform, which will allow the latest version of SDR Uno to interact with it. The problem today is if you use our server software, say on a Raspberry Pi on your remote antenna, unless you're on a very fast LAN, in which case you can use virtual here to bring it into your shack, into your main house if you've got a fast LAN connection. But for true over the internet, you have to use the old version of SDR Uno with an XTIO interface, which obviously a lot of the features aren't as good with that. You could use HDSDR, or at the moment, if you've got a Windows remote platform, then you can use SDR console remotely. But having SDR Uno working with TCP server over the internet is going to be a really popular thing. And it's coming. So we're working on that. 1.43 is more a kind of consolidation of fixing up stuff and requests that we've had along the way. And then the big one is 2.0, when we actually are able to run SDR Uno on these other platforms. And you know, there's a very vociferous community out there want us to be on the Mac in particular. we are sensitive to that. We are working on it. We don't commit timescales. It's the only thing, Rob. I mean, we've been bitten there before, and new things come along that on the support front that can cause delays. Well, everyone, I think, in the amateur radio community is always trying to attract these newcomers to radio, and this is really just a chart showing all the other things in addition to what mainstream ham radio stuff that you can use an SDR for. And some of this, I think, might be attractive to bring new perspective into the hobby. So that's something we're very keen on encouraging. So I want to say a little bit, Rob, just about, we've updated our website to try and make it a little bit more easy to navigate. So this is what the new home page looks like, with Mike, KD2, KOG, smiley face at the top there, and Andy, our software guru, and co-founder and software architect, sitting at the front here. And basically the big buttons at the side here are for product information, obviously purchasing, software, downloads, and then help. And then access to the wonderful world of YouTube. Very important button for you there, Rob, down there.
Yeah.
And then what we've done is brought together at the next layer down a button here. Click on the MISC button, miscellaneous, and then we've got in alphabetical order all the other stuff here, of which I'll just mention a couple of things. The community links is really important, because that links to all the communities out there that support each other with new and innovative ways of using RSPs. There's the developer stuff for people who are starting to develop new plugins and target our hardware for cool new applications. And then I think, of course, up on the top there, Mike has his own channel, Mike KD2 KOG, where if you say, look, could you just do a video on this? He will, add that to his YouTube channel. Down in the bottom left, we've got a searchable resource for all the videos that we've been able to catalog, either of third parties. So that would include some of your ones there, Rob, as well as our own help and guides for using the software. So anyway, that's the new look website. And then when you hit on the software, you get a panel like this, and you can choose your model, select your operating system, and then get guided down to the next level of what's needed. The technical help takes you to again, you can put in your operating system. There's common questions. It will prompt you on a few things that can go wrong and might be causing confusion, but if you still need help, the button at the bottom, you raise a ticket, and we really do try and give one-on-one feedback and help within 24 hours. And often it's just a matter of 2 or 3 hours, depending on the time zones. But during US daytime and UK daytime, then it's pretty rapid response. So just a quick thing on the community. Here's a link to our own YouTube channel, and here's the support catalog. And so I just mentioned, I mean, there's lots of groups out there, but probably the Facebook group is the longest standing thing. We have some fantastic moderators like Paul Jones, who started it off way back, and several other people like Rick King and others and Preben and so on, who maintain this and keep it friendly. And we have 16,000 members on Facebook. There's another forum for those who don't like Facebook. There's a groups.io forum, which has really bubbled up in the last year. Our thanks to the guys who run that. Finally, if you want to purchase, we have a network of resellers in the US, Ham Radio Outlet. We really do recommend going to them. You can buy direct from us, but obviously it would take longer in the US. But check out the links there. I would encourage you to be very, very careful on the internet. There's a lot of fake RSP1As being promoted. Some of them are obviously not looking like a proper RSP1A, but other times they just cut and paste a genuine one. So you don't know unless you're sure you're buying from a trusted reseller. So please be careful. We have some examples on the website of how that can cause troubles. That was just a quick race through. It's a shame we couldn't be interactive and take questions, but I tell you what, we will go through the chat after the program airs, and we can add our comments by way of answers to any questions you have, or if it prompts, a question that needs a ticket raising, that's fine. We just would love to hear your questions. We're just so pleased that we're able to, bring a lot of enjoyment back during all these lockdowns that so many countries have had, by having a product that actually allows people to have a new window on the world.
Okay, so thanks, John. That was a great presentation. A lot of information there, a lot of new things coming up in the future that I think we're all going to be looking forward to.
Well, I'd like to just say thank you so much for giving us the chance to give everyone an update, and to say how much we appreciate what is done by the YouTubers, what is done by the community, and we'll be taking time to really follow up on any questions that appear in the chat. So thank you.
Well, thank you for joining in, John. And again, I apologize to you and everyone else that I couldn't do this live this weekend. But again, like John said, if you have any questions or comments, leave those in the chat or down in the comments section, and we'll take a look at that and get back to you with an answer. Or, feel free to check out the website as well. As John showed, there's a lot of resources there. On behalf of the YouTubers bunch, we want to thank you for supporting the YouTubers Hamfest. Without support from vendors like yourself, this wouldn't really be as successful as it is. So definitely thanks for the support. And we look forward to seeing what you guys are working on down the road.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks a lot, John. See everyone later.